Section 11 of The Story of the Trapper by Agnes Christina Laut. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ted Leinhart. Chapter 11. The Indian Trapper. It is dawn when the Indian trapper leaves his lodge. In midwinter of the far north, dawn comes late. Stars, which shine with a hard, clear, crystal radiance only seen in northern skies, pale in the gray morning gloom, and the sun comes over the horizon, dim through mists of frost smoke. In an hour, the frost mist, lying thick to the touch like clouds of steam, will have cleared, and there will be nothing from skyline to skyline but blinding sunlight and snow glare. The Indian trapper must be far afield before midday. Then the sun casts no man-shadow to scare game from his snares. Black is the flag of betrayal in northern midwinter. It is by the big liquid eye, glistening on the snow like a black marble, that the trapper detects the white hair, and a jet tail tip streaking over the white wastes in dots and dashes tells him the little ermine, whose coat must line some emperor's coronation robe, is alternately scudding over the drifts and diving below the snow with the forward wriggling of a snake under cover. But the moving man-shadow is bigger and plainer on the snow than the hare's eye or the ermine's jet tip, so the Indian trapper sets out in the gray darkness of morning and must reach his hunting grounds before high noon. With long snowshoes that carry him over the drifts in swift, coasting strides, he swings out in that easy, ambling Indian trot, which gives never a jar to the runner, nor rests long enough for the snows to crunch beneath his tread. The old musket, which he got in trade from the fur post, is over his shoulder, or swinging lightly in one hand. A hunter's knife and short-handled woodman's axe hang through the beaded scarf, belting in his loose caribou capote. Powder horn and heavy muskrat gauntlets are attached to the cord about his neck, so without losing either, he can fight barehanded, free and in motion at a moment's notice. And somewhere, in side pockets or hanging down his back, is his skipper togan, a skin bag with amulet against evil, matches, touchwood, and a scrap of pemmican. As he grows hot, he throws back his hood, running bareheaded and loose about the chest. Each breath clouds to frost against his face till hair and brows and lashes are fringed with frozen moisture. The white man would hugger his face up with scarf and collar the more for this, but the Indian knows better. Suddenly chilled breath would soak scarf and collar wet to his skin, and his face would be frozen before he could go 5 paces. But with dry skin and quickened blood, he can defy the keenest cold, so he loosens his coat and runs the faster. As the light grows, dim forms shape themselves in the gray haze. Pine groves emerge from the dark, wreathed and festooned in snow. Cones and domes and cornices of snow heap the underbrush in spreading larch boughs. Evergreens are edged with white. Naked trees stand like limbed statuary with an antlered crest etched against the white glare. The snow stretches away in a sea of billowed white drifts that seem to heave and fall to the motions of the runner, mounting and coasting and skimming over the unbroken waste like a bird winging the ocean. And against this endless stretch of drifts billowing away to a boundless circle, of which the man is the center, his form is dwarfed out of all proportion, till he looks no larger than a bird above the sea. When the sun rises, strange color effects are caused by the frost haze. Every shrub takes fire, for the ice drops are a prism, and the result is the same as if there had been a star shower or rainfall of brilliance. Does the Indian trapper see all this? The white man with white man arrogance doubts whether his tawny brother of the wilds sees the beauty about him, because the Indian has no white man's terms of expression. But ask the bronzed trapper the time of day, and he tells you by the length of shadow the sun casts, or the degree of light on the snow. Inquire the season of the year, and he knows by the slant sunlight coming up through the frost smoke of the southern horizon. And get him talking about his happy hunting grounds, and after he has filled it with the implements and creatures and people of the chase, he will describe it in the metaphor of what he has seen at sunrise and sunset and under the northern lights. He does not see these things with the gabbing exclamatories of a tourist. He sees them because they sink into his nature and become part of his mental furniture. The most brilliant description the writer ever heard of the hereafter was from an old Cree squaw, toothless, wrinkled like leather, belted at the waist like a sack of wool, with hands of dried parchment, and moccasins some 5 months too odoriferous. Her version ran that heaven would be full of the music of running waters and south winds, that there would always be warm gold sunlight like a midsummer afternoon, with purple shadows where tired women could rest, that the trees would be covered with blossoms, and all the pebbles of the shore like dewdrops. Pushed from the Atlantic seaboard back over the mountains, from the mountains to the Mississippi, west to the Rockies, north to the Great Lakes, all that was to be seen of nature in America the Indian trapper has seen, though he has not understood. But now he holds only a fringe of hunting grounds in the timberlands of the Great Lakes, in the canyons of the Rockies, and across that northern land which converges to Hudson Bay, reaching west to Athabasca, east to Labrador. It is in the basin of Hudson Bay regions that the Indian trapper will find his last hunting grounds. Here climate excludes the white man, and game is plentiful. Here Indian trappers were snaring before Columbus opened the doors of the New World to the hordes of the Old, and here Indian trappers will hunt as long as the race lasts. When there is no more game, the Indian's doom is sealed, but that day is far distant for the Hudson Bay region. The Indian trapper has set few large traps. It is midwinter, and by December there is a curious lull in the hunting. All the streams are frozen like rock, but the otter and pecan and mink and marten have not yet begun to forage at random across open field. Some foolish fish always dilly-dally upstream till the ice shuts them in. Then a strange thing is seen, a kettle of living fish, fish gasping and panting in ice-hemmed water that is gradually lessening as each day's frost freezes another layer to the ice walls of the prison. The banks of such a pond hole are haunted by the otter and his fisher friends. By and by, when the pond is exhausted, these lazy fishers must leave their safe bank and forage across country. Meanwhile, they are quiet. The bear, too, is still. After much wandering and fastidious choosing, for in trapper vernacular the bear takes a long time to please himself, Bruin found an upturned stump. Into the hollow below he clawed grasses. Then he curled up with his nose on his toes and went to sleep under a snow blanket of gathering depth. Deer, moose, and caribou, too, have gone off to their feeding grounds. Unless they are scattered by a wolf pack or a hunter's gun, they will not be likely to move till this ground is eaten over. Nor are many beavers seen now. They have long since snuggled into their warm houses, where they will stay till their winter store is all used, and their houses are now hidden under great depths of deepening snow. But the fox and the hare and the ermine are at run, and as long as they are astir, so are their rampant enemies, the lynx and the wolverine and the wolf pack, all ravenous from the scarcity of other game and greedy as spring crows. That thought gives wing to the Indian trapper's heels. The pelt of a coyote or prairie wolf would scarcely be worth the taking. Even the big gray timber wolf would hardly be worth the cost of the shot, except for service as a teepee mat. The white Arctic wolf would bring better price. The enormous black or brown Arctic wolf would be more valuable, but the value would not repay the risk of the hunt. But all these worthless, ravening rascals are watching the traps as keenly as the trapper does, and would eat up a silver fox that would be the fortune of any hunter. The Indian comes to the brush where he has set his rabbit snares across a runway. His dog sniffs the ground, whining. The crust of the snow is broken by a heavy tread. The twigs are all trampled and rabbit fur is fluffed about. The game has been rifled away. The Indian notices several things. The rabbit has been devoured on the spot. That is unlike the wolverine. He would have carried snare, rabbit, and all off for a guzzle in his own lair. The footprints have the appearance of having been brushed over, so the thief had a bushy tail. It is not the lynx. There is no trail away from the snare. The marauder has come with a long leap and gone with a long leap. The Indian and his dog make a circuit of the snare till they come on the trail of the intruder, and its size tells the Indian whether his enemy be fox or wolf. He sets no more snares across that runway, for the rabbits have had their alarm. Going through the brush, he finds a fresh runway and sets a new snare. Then his snowshoes are winging him over the drifts to the next trap. It is a deadfall. Nothing is in it. The bait is untouched and the trap left undisturbed. A wolverine would have torn the thing to atoms from very wickedness, chewed the bait in two, and spat it out lest there should be poison. The fox would have gone in and had his back broken by the front log. And there is the same brushwork over the trampled snow, as if the visitor had tried to sweep out his own trail, and the same long leap away, clearing obstruction of log and drift to throw a pursuer off the scent. This time the Indian makes 2 or 3 circuits, but the snow is so crusted it is impossible to tell whether the scratchings lead out to the open or back to the border of snow-drifted woods. If the animal had followed the line of the traps by running just inside the brush, the Indian would know. But the midwinter day is short, and he has no time to explore the border of the thicket. Perhaps he has a circle of 30 traps. Of that number, he hardly expects game in more than a dozen. If 6 have a prize, he has done well. Each time he stops to examine a trap, he must pause to cover all trace of the man smell, daubing his own tracks with castoreum or pomatum or bear's grease, sweeping the snow over every spot touched by his hand, dragging the flesh side of a fresh pelt across his own trail. Midday comes, the time of the short shadow, and the Indian trapper has found not a thing in his traps. He only knows that some daring enemy has dogged the circle of his snares. That means he must kill the marauder or find new hunting grounds. If he had doubt about swift vengeance for the loss of a rabbit, he has none when he comes to the next trap. He sees what is too much for words, what entails as great loss to the poor Indian trapper as an exchange crash to the white man. One of his best steel traps lies a little distance from the pole to which it was attached. It has been jerked up with a great wrench and pulled as far as the chain would go. The snow is trampled and stained and covered with gray fur as soft and silvery as chinchilla. In the trap is a little paw, fresh cut, scarcely frozen. He had caught a silver fox, the fortune of which hunters dream, as prospectors of gold and speculators of stocks and actors of fame. But the wolves, the great black wolves of the far north, with eyes full of a treacherous green fire and teeth like tusks, had torn the fur to scraps and devoured the fox not an hour before the trapper came. He knows now what his enemy is, for he has come so suddenly on their trail he can count 4 different footprints and claw marks of different length. They have fought about the little fox, and some of the smaller wolves have lost fur over it. Then, by the blood marks, he can tell they have got under cover of the shrub growth to the right. The Indian says none of the words which the white man might say, but that is nothing to his credit, for just now no words are adequate, but he takes prompt resolution. After the fashion of the old Mosaic law, which somehow is written on the very face of the wilderness as one of its necessities, he decides that only life for life will compensate such loss. The danger of hunting the big brown wolf he knows too well to attempt it without help. He will bait his small traps with poison, take out his big steel wolf traps tomorrow. then with a band of young braves follow the wolf pack's trail during this lull in the hunting season. But the animal world knows that old trick of drawing a herring scent across the trail of wise intentions, and of all the animal world, none knows it better than the brown Arctic wolf. He carries himself with less of a hangdog air than his brother wolves, with the same pricking forward of sharp, erect ears, the same crouching trot, the same sneaking, watchful green eyes, but his tail, which is bushy enough to brush out every trace of his tracks, has not the skulking droop of the gray wolf's, and in size he is a giant among wolves. The trapper shoulders his musket again, and keeping to the open, where he can travel fast on the long snowshoes, sets out for the next trap. The man-shadow grows longer. It is late in the afternoon. Then all the shadows merge into the purple gloom of early evening, but the Indian travels on, for the circuit of traps leads back to his lodge. The wolf thief may not be far off, so the man takes his musket from the case. He may chance a shot at the enemy. Where there are woods, wolves run under cover, keeping behind a fringe of brush to windward. The wind carries scent of danger from the open, and the brush forms an ambuscade. Man tracks where man's dog might scent the trail of a wolf. The wolf clears at a long bound. He leaps over open spaces, if he can, and if he can't, crouches low till he has passed the exposure. The trapper swings forward in long, straight strides, wasting not an inch of ground, deviating neither to right nor left by as much space as a white man takes to turn on his heels. Suddenly the trapper's dog utters a low whine and stops with ears pricked forward towards the brush. At the same moment the Indian, who has been keeping his eyes on the woods, sees a form rise out of the earth among the shadows. He is not surprised, for he knows the way the wolf travels, and the fox trap could not have been robbed more than an hour ago. The man thinks he has come on the thieves going to the next trap. That is what the wolf means him to think, and the man too dissembles, for as he looks the form fades into the gloom, and he decides to run on parallel to the brushwood, with his gun ready. Just ahead is a break in the shrubbery. At the clearing he can see how many wolves there are, and as he is heading home, there is little danger. But at the clearing nothing crosses. The dog dashes off to the woods with wild barking, and the trapper scans the long white stretch leading back between the bushes to a horizon that is already dim in the steel grays of twilight. Half a mile down this open way, off the homeward route of his traps, a wolfish figure looms black against the snow, and stands. The dog prances round and round as if he would hold the creature for his master's shot, and the Indian calculates. After all, there is only one. What a chance to approach it under cover, as it has approached his traps. The stars are already pricking the blue darkness in cold steel points, and the northern lights are swinging through the gloom like mystic censers to an invisible spirit, the spirit of the still, white, wide northern wastes. It is clear as day. One thought of his loss at the fox trap sends the Indian flitting through the underwoods like a hunted partridge. The sharp barkings of the dog increase in fury, and when the trapper emerges in the open, he finds the wolf has straggled 100 yards farther. That was the meaning of the dog's alarm. Going back to cover, the hunter again advances, but the wolf keeps moving leisurely, and each time the man sights his game, it is still out of range for the old-fashioned musket. The man runs faster now, determined to get abreast of the wolf and utterly heedless of the increasing danger, as each step puts greater distance between him and his lodge. He will pass the wolf, come out in front, and shoot. But when he comes to the edge of the woods to get his aim, there is no wolf, and the dog is barking furiously at his own moonlit shadow. The wolf, after the fashion of his kind, has apparently disappeared into the ground, just as he always seemed to rise from the earth. The trapper thinks of the loup-garou, but no wolf demon of native legend devoured the very real substance of that fox. The dog stops barking, gives a whine, and skulks to his master's feet, while the trapper becomes suddenly aware of low crouching forms gliding through the underbrush. Eyes look out of the dark in the flash of green lights from a prism. The figures are in hiding, but the moon is shining with a silvery clearness that throws moving wolf shadows on the snow to the trapper's very feet. Then the man knows that he has been tricked. The Indian knows the wolf pack too well to attempt flight from these sleuths of the forest. He knows, too, one thing that wolves of forest and prairie hold in deadly fear: fire. 2 or 3 shots ring into the darkness, followed by a yelping howl, which tells him there is one wolf less, and the others will hold off at a safe distance. Contrary to the woodman's traditions of chopping only on a windy day, the Indian whips out his axe and chops with all his might till he has wood enough for a roaring fire. That will keep the rascals away till the pack goes off in full cry, or daylight comes. Whittling a limber branch from a sapling, the Indian hastily makes a bow and shoots arrow after arrow with a tip in flame to high mid-air, hoping to signal the far-off lodges. But the night is too clear. The sky is silver with stars and moonlight and reflected snow glare, and the northern lights flicker and wane and fade and flame with a brilliancy that dims the tiny blaze of the arrow signal. The smoke rising from his fire in a straight column falls at the height of the trees, for the frost lies on the land heavy, palpable, impenetrable, and for all the frost is thick to the touch, the night is as clear as burnished steel. That is the peculiarity of northern cold. The air seems to become absolutely compressed with the cold, but that same cold freezes out and precipitates every particle of floating moisture till earth and sky, moon and stars shine with a glistening of polished metal. A curious crackling, like the rustling of a flag in a gale, comes through the tightening silence. The intelligent half-breed says this is from the northern lights. The white man says it is electric activity in compressed air. The Indian says it is a spirit, and he may mutter the words of the braves in death chant: "If I die valiant. I go to death fearless. I die a brave man. I go to those heroes who died without fear." Hours pass. The trapper gives over shooting fire arrows into the air. He heaps his fire and watches, musket in hand. The light of the moon is white like statuary. The snow is pure as statuary. The snow-edged trees are chiseled clear like statuary, and the silence is of stone. Only the snap of the blaze, the crackling of the frosted air, the break of a twig back among the brush where something has moved, and the little, low, smothered barkings of the dog on guard. By and by the rustling through the brush ceases, and the dog at last lowers his ears and lies quiet. The trapper throws a stick into the woods and sends the dog after it. The dog comes back without any barkings of alarm. The man knows that the wolves have drawn off. Will he wait out that long northern night? He has had nothing to eat but the piece of pemmican. The heavy frost drowsiness will come presently, and if he falls asleep, the fire will go out. An hour's run will carry him home, but to make speed with his snowshoes, he must run in the open, exposed to all watchers. When an Indian balances motives, the motive of hunger invariably prevails. Pulling up his hood, belting in the caribou coat, and kicking up the dog, the trapper strikes out for the open way leading back to the line of his traps, and the hollow where the lodges have been built for shelter against wind. There is another reason for building lodges in a hollow. Sound of the hunter will not carry to the game, but neither will sound of the game carry to the hunter. And if the game should turn hunter and the man turn hunted, the trapper speeds down the snowy slope, striding, sliding, coasting, vaulting over hummocks of snow, glissading down the drifts, leaping rather than running. The frosty air acts as a conductor to sound, and the frost films come in stings against the face of the man whose eye, ear, and touch are strained for danger. It is the dog that catches the first breath of peril, uttering a smothered woo, woo. The trapper tries to persuade himself the alarm was only the far scream of a wolf-hunted lynx, but it comes again, deep and faint, like an echo in a dome. One glance over his shoulder shows him black forms on the snow crest against the sky. He has been tricked again, and knows how the fox feels before the dog's in full cry. The trapper is no longer a man. He is a hunted thing with terror crazing his blood and the sleuth hounds of the wilds on his trail. Something goes wrong with his snowshoe. Stooping to right the slipstrings, he sees that the dog's feet have been cut by the snow crust and are bleeding. It is life for life now, the old, hard, inexorable Mosaic law that has no new dispensation in the northern wilderness, and demands that a beast's life shall not sacrifice a man's. One blow of his gun and the dog is dead. The far, faint howl has deepened to a loud, exultant bay. The wolf pack are in full cry. The man has rounded the open alley between the trees and is speeding down the hillside, winged with fear. He hears the pack pause where the dog fell. That gives him respite. The moon is behind, and the man-shadow flits before on the snow like an enemy heading him back. The deep bay comes again, hard, metallic, resonant, nearer. He feels the snowshoe slipping, but dare not pause. A great drift thrusts across his way, and the shadow in front runs slower. They are gaining on him. He hardly knows whether the crunch of snow and pantings for breath are his own or his pursuers. At the crest of the drift, he braces himself and goes to the bottom with the swiftness of a sled on a slide. The slant moonlight throws another shadow on the snow at his heels. It is the leader of the pack. The man turns and tosses up his arms, an Indian trick to stop pursuit. Then he fires. The ravening hunter of man that has been ambushing him half the day rolls over with a piercing howl. The man is off and away. If he only had the quick rifle, with which white men and a bodyguard of guides hunt down a single quarry, he would be safe enough now. But the old musket is slow loading, and speed will serve him better than another shot. Then the snowshoe noose slips completely over his instep to his ankle, throwing the racket on edge and clogging him back. Before he can right it, they are upon him. There is nothing for it now but to face and fight to the last breath. His hood falls back, and he wheels with the moonlight full in his eyes and the northern lights waving their mystic flames high overhead. On one side, far away, are the teepee peaks of the lodges. On the other, the solemn, shadowy, snow-wreathed trees, like funeral watchers, watchers of how many brave deaths in a desolate, lonely land where no man raises a cross to him who fought well and died without fear. The wolf pack attacks in two ways. In front, by burying the red-gummed fangs in the victim's throat. In the rear, by snapping at sinews of the runner's legs, called hamstringing. Who taught them this devilish ingenuity of attack? The same hard master who teaches the Indian to be as merciless as he is brave, hunger. Catching the muzzle of his gun, he beats back the snapping red mouths with the butt of his weapon, and the foremost beasts roll under. But the wolves are fighting from the zest of the chase now, as much as from hunger. Leaping over their dead fellows, they dodge the coming sweep of the uplifted arm and crouch to spring. A great brute is reaching for the forward bound, but a mean, small wolf sneaks to the rear of the hunter's fighting shadow. When the man swings his arm and draws back to strike, this miserable cur that could not have worried the trapper's dog makes a quick snap at the bend of his knees. Then the trapper's feet give below him. The wolf has bitten the knee sinews to the bone. The pack leap up, and the man goes down. And when the spring thaw came to carry away the heavy snow that fell over the Northland that night, the Indians traveling to their summer hunting grounds found the skeleton of a man. Around it were the bones of 3 dead wolves, and farther up the hill were the bleaching remains of a 4th. End of section 11.